recording this session, and you can feel free to watch the recording again on our YouTube page, so feel free to check that out. All right, so guys, this is our agenda for today. So today we're gonna gain some tips and tricks for how to stand out with our employers and make a great first impression virtually at the expo. Understand the format for this semester's expo, recognize how to optimize your Handshake profile, and then plan a strategy. So this is gonna be a cram session, so I hope you're ready. Feel free again, ask questions in the chat. And I'll definitely leave time at the end of the session to ask questions for sure. So again, if you're new to the CCD, we are the Center for Career Development, and our mission is to educate you on all the career options here at Rice, connect you with our Rice network, and of course the amazing employers that we have that are looking for Rice talent. And I hope that you leave feeling empowered from today's session, feeling confident about how to navigate the expo and how to market your skills to the best of your ability and tell your story, right? Because all of you have amazing, unique skills that definitely all of our employers want to see. So hopefully you feel confident going into the expo. And this is our great team, so small but mighty, right? So we have our employer relations team that Caitlin is on that helped to set up this great event and to connect you with some amazing employers in and outside of Houston. And then we have our counseling team that meets students one-on-one for appointments. So if any of you have not scheduled a Career Center appointment, please do that in Handshake. You can go to Career Center appointments and then schedule a one-on-one meeting with a counselor to get advice like resume review, mock interview practice, job search tips. So feel free to schedule that in Handshake. So the expo, right, it's coming up September 23rd. We have 70, well, more than that. How many companies, Caitlin? Tell me again.
102 right now.
102 companies, guys, that are looking for you. So 102 companies looking for full-time and interns, right? So definitely this is a great time to get engaged and learn more about some of the amazing career opportunities we have on campus. So why attend a career fair? Why should we do this? What's the purpose of a career fair? Well, there's a lot of benefit, guys. One, you can educate yourself on some of the employment opportunities. So if you're a first-year student, and this is your first time attending a career fair, I would say this is your time to explore, right? See who's recruiting at Rice. What are they looking for in an intern? What are ways that you can build your resume to be more appealing maybe for the next cycle, if let's say that employer isn't looking for first-year students at the moment. Maybe you can figure out tips and tricks or just get comfortable with telling your story. I think there's a lot of value in just exploring. For those of you that are job searching, it definitely is a time for you to connect and learn and get some advice from our recruiters and employers, and then empower yourself, right? I always say practice makes perfect, so making sure that you feel confident with networking and knowing how to market your skills. So there's a lot of value in attending a job fair. And then specifically for our virtual format this year, I think there's also a lot of benefit, right? So one is convenient. You can Zoom in or connect right from your desk or wherever you are on campus. Very flexible, convenient. There's no travel involved. More private interaction with this go around. So typically we would have our in-person expo where we would gather on campus, you meet with employers at different booths and venues, but now it's just going to be you and then employer on your computer. So a little bit more private. No waiting in line, so you have your schedule where you can connect with them, and I'll show you how to do that. And then this is a dedicated and Rice-centric event. So you know that the employers that are attending are looking for students like you. So it's all for Rice, a very tailored experience. So prior to the fair, I want to touch on that first. So how do we prepare for a fair and make sure that we are at our best? So one, we want to register for the fair in Handshake, which I'll show you how to do that. We want to register for the fair, update our resume, right? Making sure that our resume is good to go, it's neat, one page, markets our skills well, tells our story well, and it's just the right format. And we have a lot of guides and tips and tricks for that on our website. Kaylin, if you don't mind putting that in the chat too, that would be so helpful. Our resume guide. If you guys haven't gotten your resume reviewed by our team, feel free to schedule a resume appointment or come to any of our resume labs. But definitely, we want to get that polished. Complete your Handshake profile. Make sure it's 100% complete, right? Your Handshake profile is like your online resume. So we want to make sure that that's polished. So we want to check that out. Research employers and opportunities. So making sure that we're aware of what employers are coming and what they're looking for and what their focus is, right? What kind of work do they do? What communities do they serve? What problems do they solve? Are we knowledgeable about that? And then have we prepared our environment and our pitch, right? There's lots of things to consider prior to the fair. So the value of research, I want to talk about that. So research, why should we research? So you want to really understand what a company is about, right? Don't be like this meme on the page, right? You want to have some solid questions when you're talking to these employers. You want to make sure that you've made the best impression that you can, right? Demonstrate that knowledge and interest. Ask insightful questions, right? Because you've done your research and you understand what they're about. And then it improves your chances of making the best choice, right? Because you're going into that conversation really knowing what that employer's focus is and what their initiatives are. Any ideas in the chat, guys? How can you research a company? How can you learn about what they do? Any ideas? Feel free to put them in the chat, in the Zoom chat here. How can you research a company? The About Us page on the website, great. On their website, yep. Any other thoughts? Glassdoor, look at you guys, yes. Glassdoor. Their mission statements, LinkedIn, yes. Look at that, Ask Rice alumni, doing some networking, right? That can give us some great perspective because they already work there, right? So they already know the ins and outs. I think that's the best resource. If we can talk to some actual employees that work there, that can give us some great insight. Any other thoughts? I would also add to that social media, right? So Twitter, TikTok, even, right? Instagram, that can give you updates on their culture, right? To understand what their focus is, more about their mission, maybe any recent updates. News articles, guys, if you just Google the company and look at news reports about them, you can look at latest statements, stocks, if you're into that stuff, right? Any updates. We want to do our research to get a wide understanding. But great tips, guys. I love this. Right? So you want to do your research before going into the fair. Know the employer, know what they're about, so you have a solid understanding and can ask some great questions. Okay, so now I want to talk about yourself, right? So the pitch. What's in our toolbox? So when you're going into the fair, you want to consider, the employer, but then we also want to think about, okay, how have I prepared to make the best first impression myself? And part of that is knowing what's in our toolbox. What have I equipped myself with in terms of telling my story of my skills, the knowledge I possess, the interests that I have, the traits that I have, and the experiences that I have. So I want to give you guys maybe a couple minutes, 3 minutes. Let's give 3 minutes. Jot down some things that you think are in your toolbox. You can just use a sheet of paper. What are the skills that you possess? What knowledge do you possess? What interests do you possess? And what personality traits or experiences do you think that you have, either from high school if you're a first-year student, or maybe you're a master's student and you just started here at Rice, or a doctoral student and you've come in maybe with some research, analytical skills, maybe you're a current TA, right? There's a lot of things that you guys have. So I'll give you guys a few minutes to do some brainstorming and think about what's in my toolbox. I'll give you a second to do that. Okay, so now join me at slido.com. Code is 558876. And if you're open to sharing, what skills or traits do you have in your toolbox? Maybe list a couple. Let's see what we all have. Maybe we have some skills or traits in common. Join us at slido.com 558-876. Curious to see what our shared skills or traits are. You can project management, hardworking, collaboration, awesome. Coding, humorous but serious when necessary. Hey, that's a good trait. Perseverance in difficult situations. I love it. Prudent, event planning, that's a great one. Python, kinda. Okay, well, good. Hey, being proficient, that's still good. HTML, nice. Team player, attention to detail. We have some great, great skills, guys. Editing. So while you guys are putting this into the Slido, I just want to lay this out how this would look at the expo. So you meet a recruiter for a one-on-one meeting in the fair, right? And so they say, all right, Kaylin, tell me about yourself. So how do I start that? What do I say? Well, these are the tools that we're going to be sharing. So you would say your name, what you're studying here at Rice, and then you'll tell your story, right? I feel that I am experienced in project management. I have a lot of industry internship experience. I worked at XYZ corporation where I was able to do blah, blah, blah. From there, I learned how to be a strong team player. Maybe I learned HTML and Python. And now I'm here at the fair because I want to know more about your company, right? And that's the best way to introduce ourselves and make that great first impression. So my hope for you is that now that you know what's in your toolbox, you know how to start that conversation with that employer and what exactly are the things that I should be saying, right? What are the strengths that I possess? What am I bringing forward? Any questions about maybe that elevator pitch or introduction? No, you guys got it. You guys got it. So hopefully you've done some good brainstorming and you have a solid idea of, what are the skills that I should be putting forth when I'm going to the fair? Because that's really going to be the most important thing, is making that great first impression. Attire. So this goes with environment, guys, right? So we're virtual in this space. So we still want to make a great first impression. First of all, you want to consider where the space that you're going to be connecting in for this session. So make sure that for the fair, you're in a space that you have good Wi-Fi, of course, good background, right? Nothing distracting in the back. You can see from my background, plain background. Of course, I wish my lighting was better today, but of course it's storming outside at the moment. But hopefully you have better lighting than I do. It's clear, good audio, and they can see you. For the Handshake platform, just keep in mind, unfortunately, you aren't able to put a Zoom background like you would in Zoom, right? So you do have to keep that in mind. It is the background that you have, so make sure that you're in a space that you're comfortable videoing in. If that employer does opt to meet outside of Handshake using another platform like Zoom or Microsoft Teams, then you might have that functionality. But for the most part, most of the virtual meetings will be taking place in Handshake. And then these are some samples of professional attire that we would suggest that you join the session in. So having a blazer or some kind of professional top, light colors, nothing too out there like neon green or neon pink, right? Something solid and professional. Stripes are fine, maybe some polka dot, but nothing too out there, guys, right? We don't want to distract with our attire. We want them to focus on what you're saying, not what you're wearing, right? Casual attire, not for career fairs, only for interviews if the organization says it's casual. We've typically seen that for tech. That's kind of their culture, is more the casual attire for interviews per se. But for fair, depending on, because you're going to be talking to a lot of different employers, err on the side of caution, maybe just come professional attire. If you do need assistance with attire, you can always schedule a career gear dress for success appointment. And that's a space where you can get some professional attire for the expo. So you can always schedule that in Handshake. But this is what we want to be in, right? Consider our environment. Make sure that everything is professional, clear, that they can see you, hear you, and that you look nice from here up, right? So that's something we want to be mindful of. So now,
Bailey,
yeah,
I have a good question in the chat for you really
sure.
quick. What should I say if I don't have any internship experience?
Great question. So we don't have any internship experience. Well, think about what's in your toolbox, right? Maybe you have some great project experience that you've developed from your time on campus. Maybe you have some student leadership from high school that you want to leverage, or from, undergrad experience, right? What is it that's transferable in terms of skills? Well, what can I showcase to show leadership? What can I showcase to show teamwork or writing skills? So think about that and then figure out, okay, how can I leverage that on my resume and my meeting with that employer? Great question. Great question, guys. All right, give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Are you guys seeing Handshake? Okay, fantastic. All right, so I want to walk you guys through registration and actually how the logistics for the expo is going to work. So you're going to log into Handshake and you're going to go to the events tab. Okay, from here, you're going to click the fair. So this is the fair. If you haven't registered, you're going to click register. Once you click register, so I'm already registered here on my account, but if you have not registered, you're going to see a survey. That survey is just asking you to be, if you want to participate in our resume book. And Caitlin, do you mind maybe explaining the resume book and the purpose behind that?
Sure. So employers will follow up with students after the expo. At an in-person expo, they would take all of your paper resumes and they would take them home and they would go over the resumes together as a group and decide on next steps, who they want to interview. So this is our way of allowing them to do that same thing. So if you didn't talk to an employer at the expo and they see your resume, they see that you're really qualified for a role, they may actually reach out to you. So it actually will open up more opportunities by allowing your resume to be included. And the most important thing is to just make sure that resume is updated in Handshake so that it's reflecting your summer experiences, what you're doing now. But that's just going to open the doors to even more opportunities. And we don't share it with any employers that are not verified through Handshake. So it's a really safe way to share your information.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. So yeah, quick survey, just 3 questions, right? Do you want to be part of a resume book? Do you understand what it means to be part of the resume book? And I think the last question also is about the resume book. So you just click, answer the questions, and then that will fully register you for the fair. Just to go back to what Caitlin mentioned about the profile and the resume. This is where you just want to check, make sure your profile for Handshake is 100% complete, meaning you've just completed all the sections, which if you've already had your resume reviewed and up to date, you can just copy and paste those bullet points and sections into your profile. And then if you scroll down here, you can go to Manage Documents, and this is where you can actually add a document, right? Your resume document. For those of you in computer science, try to make sure that it's a Word document, not a LaTeX format document. Microsoft Word is going to be the best just to be safe. So PDF, Microsoft Word doc, you're going to update that here in Handshake. So going back, oh yes.
There's 2 quick questions in the chat on that. Do we have to make our resume public in Handshake for the career fair? And should we update the resume before registering? So the resume book won't be sent out until probably 2 or 3 days after the expo. So you don't have to do it now. As long as your resume is updated, let's say the day of the expo, that's when we'll pull that info. So you have over a week to get that done. And then yes, you need to make your resume public on your Handshake profile. If you register the fair and you answer all of these questions and you don't have a public resume on Handshake, it just won't be submitted. You can still come to the fair.
Thank
Can
you.
I upload 2 versions? At this time, no. So I would include, I think the students looking to recruit in 2 different industries. If you're doing that, I would include those relevant, all of those relevant things in your resume, because at this point you couldn't choose which document to upload.
Yeah, so maybe strategically having a resume that covers a broad range of skills, and then when you specifically apply to a position at that company, then maybe I'm sorry, then maybe having a tailored resume for that opportunity would be wise. Going back to Handshake. So this is where you can see a list of the employers attending. You can click show all employers to get a good snapshot of overview of their company, job types, if they accept OPT, CPT, the job titles that they're recruiting for, and of course that they're attending Expo. You can always click on you can always search their profile or follow their profile to learn more. This list will be updated closer to the fair. So of course, keep refreshing, keep checking back. More sessions will be added as we get closer to the fair. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to go back to this page. I'm going to scroll here. So you're going to click on available sessions to actually build your schedule for the fair. So I'm going to look at this as this is a great example here. So U.S. Department of State, they have an individual session and a group session. So what's the difference? Individual sessions are going to be one-on-one meetings with that employer. So with Chris, I can see there's an 11 o'clock slot, an 11:10 slot, and an 11:20 slot. So these meetings are 10-minute meetings with that recruiter for the U.S. Department of State, for example. So if I were to click this slot, that would confirm this for my schedule. So this would add me to their session. And so now I have a one-on-one session with that employer, right? So that's a one-on-one meeting with them for me to talk about my experiences, ask questions from my research, and really get a good understanding about what they do and how I could maybe contribute to their company. It's going to be it would be through the Handshake portal, but again, if you sign up for a session and they send you an email saying that the meeting is going to be in Teams or Zoom, just keep that in mind that some companies will have meetings outside of Handshake, but for the most part, that video meeting will occur within the Handshake platform. So that's the one-on-one sessions, 10-minute meeting, video meeting, just like we are talking right now. A group session, though, if I click on that, is like a large info session. So this is a time where I could tune in for this 10:30 slot, for example, and I could connect with a large group. I think it caps at about 50 students, and I can hear from a representative from the U.S. Department of State about their organization. So again, I can learn about what they do, their hiring process, maybe learn about their company culture, their mission, and I can ask questions either via the chat feature or I can raise my hand through Handshake and be unmuted and ask my question publicly. So this is another touch point for connection. This is a 30-minute meeting, so a little bit longer, but again, it allows me time to get to know that company. I would say be mindful of your schedule. So you don't want to schedule things too close together, right? So be mindful of when things are starting, but I think it's wise to figure out who you want to connect with, what the time slots are, and try to register for those sessions that are available. Because this is in Handshake, make sure your pop-up blocker is turned off for the session so that as soon as it starts, you can hop into the session. And of course, I'll show you guys on the next slide when I go back to the PowerPoint. We will have a what's called Owl Mentor Nest, so we can triage any questions the day of. If you're having technical issues or want to practice your pitch, you can always come connect with us at the Owl Mentor Nest. But this is going to be the main way for you to schedule your career fair experience and who you want to connect with that day. And we're going to be live from 10 to 3 p.m. So let's say you have a class. You don't have to be here the whole time, right? So you can figure out who you want to talk with that day. schedule the sessions that you need, and leave the fair, or you can come and go, right? As long as you have your schedule, you're locked in for that time. And you can always change your sessions if needed. You can cancel the reservation if needed, cancel your session. So keep that in mind. You can cancel, you can add. Just make sure that you're up to date with your sessions and have it prepared for Expo.
Let me jump in really quickly. I've
Sure.
been answering your questions in the chat. One of the most common questions that I get is, I'm trying to think of a good example. Facebook is coming to the expo, but there's no sessions. I can't see the sessions. The truth is, some employers are going to wait until a few days before the fair to set their schedules. And as much as we encourage them and push them to do it ahead of time, they just might not. And so you'll see, I don't know if there's an example you could show Rayleigh, but instead of the little group session icons you're seeing here, it will say there are no sessions scheduled, follow this company. You click follow and you get notified as soon as their schedule is live. So if you're super interested in someone, I would encourage you to do that. It's probably at the very end of the list because there's nothing, but that's a great way just to stay on top of whose schedules are live and whose aren't. And then another good question was, let's see, how many one-on-one sessions can you schedule? As many as you can fit into your schedule. So sign up for all of them. Some of the companies will have limited availability. So if you want to talk to them, I would encourage you to do so as soon as possible.
Right, and going back to the career fair details, right? If you scroll down here, this is how you can follow an employer, right? So if you want updates and you're not seeing their schedule, just click follow, right? And that'll give you the updates in Handshake to notify you of when they've gone live. Or just come back, check regularly to see when their schedule has been updated, and then register as soon as possible to book that session. Great questions, guys. Great questions. For sake of time, I'm going to go back to the presentation here. And so now, oops, there we go. So this is what it will look like in Handshake if you were having your session in the Handshake platform itself. So you can see here, Anna is meeting with Justin. Simple video chat. She has the ability to mute, share screen, leave the session, adjust her settings. There's a chat on the right-hand side where she can type in anything or share information. And of course, that recruiter could also look at her Handshake profile. So everything, again, is built in Handshake. Only thing that's going to be different between Handshake and Zoom is going to be that background. So right now with Handshake, you can't customize that background. So what you have behind you is what they'll see. So if you want to be in a different space, prepare accordingly so that your background does not distract from your experience. All right. And then some other tips to keep in mind. So during the fair, arrive early, test your connection, make sure everything is good to go. For those group sessions, take initiative to talk, add questions in the chat, ask insightful questions because that's going to help you stand out and be set apart. Be patient, wait your turn, of course, for those group sessions to ask your questions, and then ask for their contact info, right? For those group sessions and those individual sessions, they might have a LinkedIn or a phone number, email that you can respond to, typically email. So maybe get that contact info so you can follow up after the fair if you have further questions. And then, of course, thank them for their time, right? These recruiters are definitely giving their time to get to know you, to get to know all of our RISE students. So feel free to reach out to them, thanking them for attending the fair and for answering any questions you have. We don't want to do informal messaging. So there is a chat feature, so no LOLs or emojis. Try to avoid that. Right, let's keep it professional. Don't debate, complain, or badmouth. That's going to leave a bad impression. So we want to keep things positive and don't show up in your pajamas. So let's try to prepare, plan ahead, have that professional attire because we do want to, right, make a good first impression. This is what I was talking about before, the OWL Mentor Nest. You guys have seen in the newsletters from Caitlin. It's also on the Handshake page, but there's a Zoom link that you can hop into to triage anything. We're going to be live all day during the fair. All counselors will be on board to answer any questions, help you practice your pitch and introduction, look at resumes for a quick review if needed. We're going to be doing that all day during the fair. And then after the fair, other things to consider. So like I said, send a thank you. Follow-up email, you can include your resume for context so that they remember, okay, who was this person that I talked to? What was the context of our conversation? Maybe personalize it. Like maybe they gave you some great advice and so you want to follow up with that. Or you both develop rapport. Maybe you both have a favorite sports team that you share together or a favorite hobby. Whatever you connected on, try to personalize that email. And then update your LinkedIn and Sally Portal profiles. If you don't have a LinkedIn account, I would definitely suggest creating one. That could be a great way to follow up with a recruiter or anyone that you connected with during the fair. Maybe even download the LinkedIn app so you can quickly add them after your meeting and send them a message there. Sally Portal, that's going to be the RICE mentorship and networking website. Create an account there and also follow up with anyone that you connected with. Just a really good thing to do for networking and to build relationships. All right, so now we're near the end here. So I want to open it up to questions. Feel free to unmute. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording just for questions. So